What's your favorite bad for you food, Will?
My favorite restaurant in the world, and yes, it's a restaurant, is McDonald's. And that's why I don't eat it much.
A wee
I love
Scottish
McDonald's.
restaurant called Mickey Donald's.
Mickey Donald's. Yes.
McDonald's.
I love it. I love it to death. And
Well, I told Ryder that my favorite burger is a McDonald's burger, and Ryder then told me about a place that I have yet to try, but it's the, probably way cleaner version of a McDonald's burger.
Oh, it's a
Which place?
hipster. It's hipster.
Yeah.
It's in Silver Lake. It's called Burgers Never Say Die.
Okay.
And it's unbelievable.
Can I ask the last time you had a McDonald's burger, Ryder?
Me?
Yeah.
I've had McDonald's. Indy loves McDonald's. So,
Okay,
when we're on a road trip and when we have to stop for fast food, which is usually when I eat fast food, we'll get a McDonald's. Oh, I'll do that over an In-N-Out. I'm not an In-N-Out guy.
Oh, I love In-N-Out.
But,
I love In-N-Out burgers, but not the fries.
I don't like the fries. Fries are bad. But
Totally.
the In-N-Out burgers, I get it protein style too. I love the crunch of the lettuce. Big fan of that.
I love crunchy lettuce. I've been really into making sandwiches lately. And
Love me some sandwiches.
just like a homemade sandwich. By the way, when I was a kid, I don't know how it was even possible because I've tried to do it now. It's not really easy. But my mom used to draw a heart in the peanut butter. She'd make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And
That's
she'd
really intense.
She'd draw a heart in the peanut butter, and then I think she just very lightly put the bread together. But I remember being in elementary school and being able to slowly peel apart the sandwich to see to see whatever portion of the heart was still left in the peanut butter.
Wow.
Isn't that sweet? I know. And then it made me think about the fact that like I don't include enough. My mom used to leave me a note in my lunch occasionally, and I loved those notes. And so for Adler's 3rd birthday, I dropped him off at school, and I put a little note in there, and I was like, he can't read. This isn't going to mean anything to him.
What am I doing?
They
What
don't.
is this?
Sometimes I give Indy notes every once in a while, and back when he was in preschool, the teachers would read them too.
Oh,
So
That's
it was,
sweet. That always
so I was
reminds
just
me-
aware that somebody was going to read it to him. But
Okay, good.
There's a Simpsons episode where Lisa and Bart are coming up at lunch, and Lisa says, Bart says, I think I got your lunch. And she takes it over, and the note says, I'm so proud of you. I love you. And she goes, yeah, I got yours. And the note says, be good. For the love of God, be good. And I always thought that was great. Yeah. I'm also not going to tell you that when I travel, my wife puts together a snack bag and puts a note in it for me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's cute.
You
No
are a
joke.
child.
When Jensen and I
No
were
joke.
dating, and he'd go on a trip somewhere, I would write a little notes like on a Post-it. I'd rip a Post-it into 3 and write 3 little notes, or just like I love you, and hide one in the brim of his hat and one in a sock.
Aw, you guys are so
It's
loving.
nice. We do that
awesome.
stuff. I love doing that stuff.
Well, Ryder custom built his wife's wedding ring. So.
yeah, exactly. I'm saying it
She
again.
doesn't wear it.
Smelted the metal. Smelt.
It tells you everything about our relationship. You make the grand gesture and then you forget about it.
Well,
just
I
spent
mean,
6
listen,
months
I don't-
mining the metal.
I don't leave those notes in Jensen's hats anymore. I have 2
No.
children to take care of. And, I feel like, truthfully, marriage right after kids absolutely takes a total backseat to now the children. And like
sure.
the good news is, I am not in a relationship where Jensen feels like once we had kids, she stopped prioritizing me. Like Jensen
Right.
so totally gets it that for both of us, our children right now are like the season of life we are in is just very kid centric. And there will be a time where we get back to like our relationship being in the hierarchy. But right now it's kind of like the biggest bonding experience we have is playing Octortle before we go to bed. And that's about
No,
it.
I definitely if you can have grandparents or somebody watch the kids, I would definitely like taking each other out to dinner is like something that Alex and I have always made essential. It's like, every couple of weeks, at every stage, it was like, because we were fortunate enough that my in-laws are local, in LA, no one has grandparents. So like all of our friends, they have to hire a babysitter if they're going out or whatever. But we're so lucky. My in-laws moved from Florida when Indy was born. And so we've always been able to just have nights out where it's just the 2 of us. And it's like so essential. I love that. Yeah.
That's
You
why
gotta make that.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Sue and I, that's one of the reasons why kids, we love it's just about us. We like that. I mean, it works for us. It's perfect. So.
Well, welcome to Pod Meets World. I'm Danielle Fishel.
I'm Ryder Strong.
And I'm Will Friedle.
You may know us as Topanga, Shawn, and Eric. And we are doing a special episode today because we have been asking you and you have been delivering. We've been saying, email us your thoughts, your questions at podmeetsworldshow@gmail.com. And starting right with episode 1, you guys started sending in your questions. And now we have so many of them, we thought we would do a very special Q&A episode. Also, do you remember when you were like
12 or 13 years old and your absolute favorite band was Meatloaf? Well, so does Mr. Feeney. And so do we, which is why we made a Meet Feeney shirt in honor of the greatest episode, the greatest scene, the greatest image of all time, double Meatloaf on Mr. Feeney. It is available until August 28th and then never available again. So get your Meet Feeney shirt at podmeetsworldshow.com.
Now, we wanted to check in with each other to say, how are you feeling? How do you think this is going? Moments that have made you uncomfortable, moments that have made you really happy. And so that's kind of where we are. Ryder, how are you feeling in this stage of our journey?
I feel like I jumped into what I thought was like a shallow pool and it got really deep really quick. I feel like we got in over our heads a little quicker than I don't know. I guess I thought the rewatching would take more of a precedence than the conversations about behind the scenes. But basically, after we started that first episode and the memories just kept coming and the conversation kept going in that direction, because that is our experience, right? Is like I remember backstage way more than I remember the episodes themselves. So we just keep going in that direction. And I can't believe how much material there is already out there. And so I'm a little overwhelmed. I'm a little like, wow, I thought I'd processed all of this, but obviously not. And yeah, so I still have a lot of feelings and I'm still figuring it out. I think the best part about this has been sharing it with my son. That's been super fun and funny and already led to interesting conversations about him and our relationship that I like. Because what I end up playing on the show is I edit down from usually like a 5 to 10 minute conversation. So it's usually double what is on this show. And that's been super fun. But yeah, it's definitely gotten deeper than I thought, quicker. How about you guys?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I'm really loving, first of all, well, a couple things. Really loving seeing the both of you as much as we always saw each other, but now that it's like a regular thing, kind of, there's a safety in doing this with your friends. So there's something that I love about that. I also just absolutely adore bringing all the guests back and getting to talk to everybody again as adults. And also just the conversations of leading to who else are we going to bring on? Who else can we get? Who's going to come? I mean, all that kind of stuff is a lot of fun for me. But yeah, it got very real, very quickly. And I'm okay with that. I think it's, one of the things that we always talked about was we were going to start this show and then we were going to let the show kind of dictate what it became. We were going to, just keep it very, very loose and see where it went and go from there. And once Tony Quinn came up with the idea of actually making the show and we were able to kind of move
Thank
forward
God for Tony
with it.
Quinn. In 2018, he came up with it. He was really ahead of
He
his
came up
time.
with it after Con in 2018, and I thank him for it every day. And
he invented podcasts too,
He
right?
did. So... yeah, so no, it's been a ton of fun. I've really enjoyed it. I know this sounds ridiculous. It's been a lot more work than I thought it was going to be, if that makes any sense.
You mean just mentally draining? Or?
Mentally draining, time consuming, actual work. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work. It's like, oh, you sit down in front of a microphone, you talk. Well, no, there's a lot that goes on because we want to be kind of involved in every aspect of the show. So, but it's been fun, but it's been a lot more emotional than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think to your point, Will, about the time consumingness of it, I think one of the things that I'm surprised by that I shouldn't really have been surprised by is just how much I enjoy talking about all of the little moments for each one of us and how long we must find ourselves endlessly entertaining. I hope you guys find us entertaining too, because I am amazed when 2 hours go by. I am truthfully like 2 hours go by and I go, I feel like I've been here for 40 minutes. Yeah. And by the way, if I wasn't worried about you guys listening, not wanting to have a 3-hour episode, I could still sit here and keep discussing things. And so I'm like that in that sense. There's been so much to discuss and I've enjoyed all of it. And it is time consuming to watch the episode, write the notes, think about the memories, and then, be present in the conversation and want to listen to what everybody else's stories are. I'm selfishly very excited to get into some episodes that I'm in because I feel a little like,
Us too.
I'm getting to comment on a show that doesn't even feel at all like I'm a part of it yet. You know, I did think in that episode with Will's first on-screen kiss with Carrie Russell, I thought it was funny. I didn't say it in the time when we did the episode, but I'm remembering it now, that it's funny that Corey doesn't even make any mention of the fact that he has also kissed a girl. And I that's one of the things that makes me think you guys may have recorded that episode before that, because he makes a joke about Eric maybe having kissed 2 girls. And I thought it would have almost been funnier for him to be like, I've kissed the same amount of girls you have, you know, like just... But he didn't even acknowledge it. So I feel like maybe that was even before I was there. So selfishly, I'm looking forward to getting into some episodes where I'm there, because I can't wait to critique myself in those ways.
We can't wait to critique you either.
Oh, it's going to be so fun.
Do you guys want to hear something weird? I refused to call myself a child actor until maybe like 5 years ago.
Really?
I could not. Yeah. I intentionally avoided the phrase I was a child actor, or, I would find ways around it. I would say, and I acted when I was a kid.
Me too.
Or, you know, I used to act. I started acting when I was young. For whatever reason, I became obsessed at post Boy Meets World immediately with not acknowledging my identity as this thing. And it was so weird. In college, I became friends with Joshua Waitzkin, who is the child prodigy that Searching for Bobby Fischer is based on. He was a chess player, and he was a chess. So his dad wrote the incredible book. It's a wonderful book by Fred Waitzkin called Searching for Bobby Fischer, which then became a pretty good movie. But when we were in college, he mentioned that he hated the phrase child prodigy. He couldn't stand, and I was like, why? That's such a compliment. It's so awesome. But then on the flip side, I had to acknowledge I hated child actor, which to me seemed more derogatory. But for him, even child prodigy, which I thought of as a compliment, he could only see it as diminishing, because it was like either he wanted to be a grown-up prodigy or whatever, you wanted to just be acknowledged for doing a thing, and maybe you started it early. But it was clear that we were both going through the same psychological process for, very different reasons. But so when we were talking about this show, this podcast, it's really something that would have been literally impossible for me to think about 5 years ago, when I couldn't even say the phrase child actor. Now I'm like, I was a kid actor. It was crazy, and I can own it. But so even just like the fact that we're having these kinds of conversations where we're really diving deep and being completely honest is only possible as a 40-plus-year-old for me.
Yeah, I also avoided child actor, and I think it's for a few reasons. One, it's a very loaded phrase. It also implies somehow possibly, messed up, possibly a drug addict, possibly, caught up in some things.
But see, it doesn't actually. That's what's interesting is that it doesn't. It did to you, or it does,
exactly.
That's what you're afraid of. But that's actually not the case. Like, it's literally child actor. It's a neutral description. But I think what it does by adding the child to it, it diminishes that you were an actor, right?
Yeah.
It somehow creates an identity that's different than doing a thing. Like, you didn't just act, you were a child actor. It's an identity that's sort of like handed to you. I don't know. That's
and also then it has the feeling of when you are no longer a child, it is taken away from you. That now you've outgrown a thing. Now you're no longer special because you're no longer a child. And so you have that feeling of like, well, am I not still good at what I do, or am I not still an actor because I'm no longer a child? But I do think when people talk about, well, how did, child actor, for a lot of people, it is weightier than just the description. I know the words mean you were an actor who was a child, but it also does have that sense of like, so there must be a problem with you because you were a child actor, because it does, I don't know, maybe that is just me, but I feel like most people think of it that way.
I never called myself a child actor, and it wasn't conscious. I was always an actor, and and then be like, oh, really? You're an actor? Yeah, I'm an actor. Oh, when did you start? I was like, oh man, I started when I was a kid, or I was really young. But I was never like, and I was a child actor. I mean, see, it's different for you, Ryder, because you're not an actor anymore. Where I'm still acting, so it was kind of like I'm an actor. And it's like, oh, well, when I was young, I was on this. And when I was in my 20s, and I was on this. And I do a lot of voiceover. And like, it was never, I never put it in a category. And I think there is kind of like, that we've talked about this a number of times. We're coming in the early 90s. You were coming off the 80s child actor, which did have that kind of negative connotation around it, where that's what you did. You peaked at 17. You then robbed a liquor store. That's what happened when you were acting in the 80s. And I think we hit a different kind of version of quote unquote child actor in the 90s. I mean, we just did. And so I don't know. I never referred to myself as a child actor. I was always just an actor. And then what's funny is in the last, and my wife calls me on this every once in a while. She's like, I wish you would stop doing that. For the last 8-9 years, I always tell people I do cartoon voices. They're like, what do you do for a living? I go, oh man, I do animation, or I'm a voiceover actor. Like, that's always what I've called myself. So I have no problem for some reason putting myself in that category, but I never once called myself a child actor. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here we are, 3 child actors.
3 child actors.
About to go through
Ex-child actors.
and talk about some of your most frequently asked questions that we've gotten since we started the podcast. One of them is a very simple one, which is, what's the podcast schedule? How many times a week are we going to get to hear the podcast? Or maybe you're asking, stop overloading us with podcasts. I don't know. But you want to know, slow down. Why are we getting 2 a week? Our podcast schedule is 1 a week, unless we are lucky enough to have a guest, which we've had a lot of guests lately. If we are lucky enough to have a guest, then you will get 2 episodes in a week. And that's
but
the schedule.
But if you act now... No, sorry.
We'll give you a 3rd. Will there be a YouTube channel for the podcast? As of right now, the answer is no. Maybe somewhere down the line, who knows? We could eventually. We are recording this mostly for audio. It's not we're recording it because it's great video of us or anything. It's mostly just because it helps us with recording audio, and we like to have it for our social posts. But as of right now, we're not recording it for video. It's just audio. So, but who knows? In the future, maybe we'll leave that window open. Now, this is a great question for you two. I have kind of a boring answer for it, so I'm going to go last. But did you keep any props or items from the Boy Meets World set?
Yes.
Ryder, you want to start?
Yeah, so I think I did end up trading not a bunch, but some clothing at the end of the last season. Disney would allow, Disney only cared that certain clothes stayed, because they would keep them in a warehouse for I don't know how many years. I don't think they're still there, but they did want to keep the clothes, but they would never check if it was the specific jacket, specific shirt. So our wardrobe people let us come in and trade. So as long as we brought in a jacket. So I went and bought a leather jacket that I had worn that was very similar to the Shawn jacket, but it was mine. And then I brought it in and traded it for Shawn's actual leather jacket. And I did that with some other clothes too. But for about 2 years post Boy Meets World, a year and a half post Boy Meets World, I had that leather jacket. I wore it in New York. But then I was living in Brooklyn and Williamsburg, and my car got broken into. I came out from my apartment, and my car's window was broken, and the alarm was going off, and my jacket was gone. I left it in the car.
Bummer.
So yeah, someone stole the leather jacket out of my car in Brooklyn. The other thing I have is there's a painting of Robert Nighthawk that was in the college. What was it called? The
common room,
Pembroke?
or
Yeah,
common room? Is that what?
yeah.
Okay. What was it? I mean, it had to have an actual name.
No, it had a
in the
name.
script.
It had a name. It was the...
Oh my gosh, this is gonna drive me
I
crazy.
have no idea.
It wasn't just a common room. There was something else. Lounge, college lounge. I don't know. Anyway, right above like one of the I think it's right where the pool table was at some point. There was a original painting. I forget who it's actually by, but it's an artist who does musicians. He paints musicians and with their name underneath.
We're just getting the student union. Was it the student union?
Student
Union. That's what it was. Thank you.
That's from Easton. Thank you, Easton, our engineer and Boy Meets
Super
World mega
fan.
fan.
Okay, yeah. So in the student union, there was a painting. Anyway, I took that painting the last night. I stole it. Danielle, you were with me.
Yep.
We were sitting in the stands the last night after the tape, after the final taping. It was you, me, my girlfriend at the time, and Beth, who was our second stage manager, second or whatever. Anyway, I threw it in the back of my girlfriend's truck. I was like, I'm going to take that painting. Now I would go back and take so much more. Like, I really wish I had Pembroke sweatshirts and Pembroke stuff, because we had that whole student union was filled with Pembroke props, and I didn't keep any of them. I'm sure they're online to be bought, but it would be nice to have an original.
I have a Pembroke sweatshirt
Oh, that's good.
somewhere. That's the only thing I kept. By the time the show was over, I was just mentally not in a good place. I was so burnt out. I was like goodbye show. I don't think at the time I had any idea that it was going to, one, be something I was talking about 30 years later. And so I didn't know that and I also, unfortunately, have never been much of like, I'm not sentimental about things. I'm like sentimental about experiences. I'm sentimental about, but like I'm not a big thing person. I tend to be a little bit more of a minimalist. And so the idea of holding on to something didn't really strike me at the time, but I wish I did, because obviously I'd like to have it now. But other than the Pembroke sweatshirt, I don't have anything. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I don't have much. I am very much a sentimental person, which just surprises me that I don't have more from the show. Where my wife is the same way. She's like, "Oh, baby clothes, yoink," and she just throw them away. I have a John Adams Athletic Department sweatshirt that I wear still when I work out. Yeah,
it's very cool.
And I have a Dr. Papson signed by Mark Papson. So we've talked about this on other shows where you're not allowed to show products, and you can't show. So can't say Coca-Cola, can't say Pepsi. So we would have our prop guy would have a little fun, and they would rename certain products, whether it be cereal or soda or whatever it was. And one of the things that his name was Mark Papson, and one of the things we would have Dr. Papson instead of Dr. Pepper. So I have a Dr. Papson signed by Mark Papson in my office, sitting on the desk.
And it's still
been there
full,
for years.
right? It still has.
No. It's empty. It's empty. It was empty from when I got it. Okay. But other than that, and then I have things that I just kept because I never throw things away. Like I have probably 100 different scripts, at least.
That's so cool.
Original scripts from Boy and original scripts from Kim Possible and kind of old shows back in the day. But I have a ton of Boy Meets World scripts that I found. And I have like original videotapes. I found the original pilot not too long ago, which I gave you guys each a copy of, with the original Eric and the original Alan. Oh, and I know this is going to be a frequently asked question. No, it will not be released anywhere. We don't have the right to do that.
Yeah.
So I found that, but other than kind of big stuff, no. We all did the clothing trade. You went in and these jeans for that jeans and that, and it was crazy to the point where you talk about how exacting Disney can be. It was a good 3 or 4 weeks later, I got a call from someone at Disney who was not affiliated with the show, but with Disney Wardrobe overall, asking me for a pair of black socks that apparently I had taken. There's a pair of black dress socks missing from your character.
So they really did follow up.
They followed up, and I was like, sorry, don't have them, and I'm not about to run in a pair of black socks to Disney. But I literally got a phone call about a pair of black socks.
So I think the Disney Vault is actually like kind of a famous thing, because remember the episodes that we did where we went back to like the 40s or the 50s? I'm wearing Lucille Ball's shoes.
Yeah.
And that's why they keep all the clothes. They keep them so that when they do period pieces, or if someone becomes some massive star or historic, there's some historical reason to do it, they've got it. And then I don't know how long they hold on to it, but we did that episode where we went back to the 50s in 95 or something, and I'm wearing Lucille Ball's shoes.
I think it's more for functionality, or like what you were saying, it's more about for period pieces than they rarely, I don't think they're saving things for sentimental or resale value or like sort of historical museum.
No. They also
value.
don't save everything, because there was it went viral on TikTok last year or the year before, where somebody found at a thrift store, and it's marked Disney and tagged Disney with the date, the quote unquote now famous pink dress from My Date with the President's Daughter, which is a movie that I did for Disney. And it was like all over TikTok, where the woman was like, I have the actual dress, and there's the the name and everything on there. So that was
what was
only
really cool is that Disney
98.
They have a warehouse where the giant rows all the way up to the ceiling. So from floor to ceiling, racks of clothes, and they divide them in rows by decade. Do you guys remember this? Did you ever go there?
No, I don't think I ever went.
Yeah, so I think probably what happened is a lot of our clothes might be in what is now the 90s aisle of this warehouse. But I don't think they would have labeled and kept it just for, the sake of Boy Meets, having Boy Meets.
Do you think they're labeled at all, though? Like, do you think if we went there and looked in the 90s thing, there'd be a Boy Meets World section, or do you think they're all just muddled in there with the 90s?
We could find a denim sleeveless denim with
Well,
the
that's
hood.
on what I mean. I know it sounds
I think we
ridiculous,
just
but
recognize we'd have to look for our stuff.
could be a lot of fun if they would let
the
us
leather
kind
jacket
of
I
walk
traded
through.
in for
I
mine
would
might still be there.
love to go.
That's what I'm saying. We get video and we put it up on the website where it's like,
All right,
look,
so if anybody
our
works in the
clothes.
art department of Disney and can give us access to one of the many warehouses, I just remember the one in particular we went to.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Wow.
Do you remember Ryder
Hook us
when they
up.
used to? There was the one woman, and I wish I remembered her name because she was very sweet. We would go to her office, and she would take us down the hall to like the DVD room, and she would open up the doors and the drawers, and it was like take whatever you want, and we would walk out with like stacks of DVDs.
What are you talking about? You
Disney
mean at
had
the
done.
Disney store on
No,
the
not
Disney lot?
no. She was like an executive at Disney, but who had access to the whole DVD section, and she would be like, "Take," because they'd have stacks of
New.
all their movies and all their shows and all their stuff, and we would go in there and walk out with like 30 DVDs each of all the new
I
stuff.
do not have any recollection.
Oh,
of
yeah,
this,
it was awesome.
honestly. So
It
maybe
was
I never
totally
did
cool.
because I don't. Yeah.
Oh, I used to do it all the time. I know you were with me at least once because you were like, "This is the best." I was like, "Yeah, this is awesome."
It would have been a lot later because DVDs weren't really.
Yeah, no,
even
this was.
around
I think
until-
we were. This might have even been 6th or 7th season,
Yeah.
but it was great. Yeah.
All right. So, will we ever get to hear Anthony Tyler Quinn, aka Mr. Turner, as a guest?
Yes, we will.
We
I've already
sure
talked to
will.
Tony. What's funny, very quick funny story. Well, it's not funny so much as ironic that we're talking about it right now. I am here in Chicago where Tony and his wife have moved, and he is picking me
Oh,
up tomorrow night, and we are having dinner.
Nice.
So I
Will
saw
you please
him.
take a picture and send it
I
to
will.
us?
I will. I saw him 3 weeks ago, right before, probably 2 days before he moved. I mean, they like literally just moved
Like
here.
just moved. Oh,
Like
okay.
just moved here. So he's coming to the con to grab me tomorrow night. We're gonna go and grab some food. And
fun.
so we've already asked him. He is absolutely coming on the show. He cannot wait. So you will certainly be able to hear from Mr. Tony Quinn.
I can't wait to talk to him. Oh my gosh. Please send us a picture. I want to
I
see
will,
him
of
too.
course, of
He
course.
probably looks exactly the same.
He does. He looks
Yeah.
like he's still in way better shape than any of us could ever hope to be. And he's yeah, he's crazy, man. Love him to death.
Okay. Another very frequently asked question is, who were our first celebrity crushes?
I know mine right off the bat.
Go.
Well, okay, so I have 2. My first celebrity crushes, my earliest celebrity crush that I can remember was Aaron Gray on Buck Rogers. Was my first ever celebrity crush. Followed quickly when I got a little bit older by Drew Barrymore. Those are my 2. But Aaron Gray on Buck Rogers was like, it changed my life.
Isn't it funny? Mine was Meredith Salinger in Journey of Natty Gann. A missed masterpiece. I love this movie. I actually recently watched it with my son, and it's not great, but it's incredible at its recreation of the period. It's a great film. It should be remade big time. But
Well,
anyway,
get on that, writer.
Yeah, I know. No, I actually have thought about it would be an amazing limited series because it's about a girl who escapes during the Depression, or her dad works all the way across the country, and she's in an abusive situation, so she runs away to find her dad across the country. So it's her literally moving from one coast to the other. Or I think it's from Chicago to California to find her dad, and it's just her riding the rails, and she has a wolf that hangs out with her. And
Is it fantasy?
No. It's
Okay.
gritty, realist, and that's kind of the problem with the movie is that it's just episodic. It's just now she's in this town and she runs into this gang of kids and she goes over here, and it's all very it doesn't string together into a fully functional good narrative. But the beats are wonderful, and Meredith Salinger is awesome. And I actually got to know her later on. She played my brother's girlfriend in the pilot Odd Man Out, which we talked about in our first episode. Hilary Swank played his older sister, and then
Wow.
Meredith
I'm sorry,
Salinger was the girl he was
Googling
making out
her.
with on the couch. And I remember my brother and I were both just oh my god, because we had grown up loving having our first crush on Meredith when she was 12 and we were 8 or whatever.
Oh, I know
and then here he was
exactly who
making
she
out with
is.
her. Yeah,
I
she's
know-
great. She's. I mean, we actually became friends in our teens. I haven't seen her for years, but
You know who she just...
she married Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt. Yeah, she's Patton
Yeah.
Oswalt's wife.
Yeah, she's great. But anyway, that was definitely my first feelings.
So I didn't watch a lot of TV as a kid, and I'm not sure why, because my parents like weren't opposed to TV or anything. I just don't have like a lot of memory. It wasn't important to me. It was like just not a thing I was into. I was really interested in reading. I loved to read. And I remember my brother being really into shows. My brother is 4 years younger than me, and he watched a lot of animated stuff. So like Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, you know, all of that stuff. And so I remember watching that stuff with him, and I was a fan of Sesame Street when I was really young, but that was it. I didn't have like
Cookie Monster.
Yeah, so Cookie Monster was my first crush. No. So my first...
You were more of a Kermit guy.
Oh, Danielle, I really like you.
Oh, my God.
My first then celebrity crush was actually Jonathan Taylor Thomas because I actually... Yes, from Home Improvement, because we worked next door to him and we, you know, played sports with him. And
but this is different. That's cheating.
Only a young actor's first childhood crush is somebody they know.
Yeah, that's like saying your first. No, that doesn't count. I know what you're trying to do. I see you, Danielle. You're trying to slip in a school crush or like a very like appropriate age crush in real life. And then because it happened to be a celebrity, excuse me, did I date somebody from NSYNC? Is that just... No, you were already a celebrity by then. But maybe that's true. I get it. But the whole point is, did you ever have feelings for somebody you didn't know? Like the point is somebody was on a screen or in a situation removed from you and you had a crush on them that was basically based on it never happening.
No. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. I take that back. That's not true. After I already had the crush on Jonathan, and then yes, Jonathan was my first boyfriend when I was like 12.
Oh my God.
When Titanic came out, I was just beyond for Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay. I mean, disgusting. Like the biggest crush. I used to be like, I'm going to marry that guy. And that was weird.
So you would have moved over and shared the door with him so you both could have survived.
Of course.
Nice.
Of course I would have. Nice. So yeah, I did have a crush on Leonardo DiCaprio, but that feels weird to me because it was so much like I was 16 or something at that time.
That
it was
counts,
a weird
though.
It was
it's
a weird time to
don't know, you know.
That's the way I felt about my brother was actually in a movie. He ended up getting cut out. But he was in this movie called Foxfire, and Angelina Jolie, a young Angelina Jolie is in it, and she is unbelievable. And she is great because she's a great actress, but she is also so gorgeous. And so when I saw this movie, which my brother got cut out, he's still in the end credits, you can find him. But when I saw this movie, I was like, who is that? And I am in love with her.
Natalie Wood in West Side Story was like that for me too. That's another one of mine where it was just, she was so... As Maria, just
These
incredible.
Are all pretty predictable.
Oh, yeah. Also Eminem. I went through.
That's a little.
I was 18 or 19. Yeah. I had a poster at 18 years old. I had an Eminem poster on my wall. Oh my gosh! And how could I just remember this? Do you guys remember that in my wallet I used to carry around a picture of David Letterman?
That's right. I remember this.
No, I don't know that at all.
This was something you always said. You were like, I think David Letterman is the most handsome man. And we were always like, what? And you're like, because he's so funny.
He's so funny. So yes, I just remember
the wallet.
I had a picture of him in my wallet.
This was such a big conversation. I remember being like, Danielle's got a thing for David Letterman. But then it totally makes sense.
I was 12 years old and in love with David Letterman. As a matter of fact, so my first boyfriend, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, then got to be a guest on the David Letterman show. And he came home with a signed headshot from David Letterman to me. And I think it said, "Dear Danielle, be nice to Jonathan."
Nice.
I love David Letterman.
So was that a crush or was that just like admiration for...
Good question.
You don't know.
Well, you know what's funny?
Similar.
I thought he was extremely handsome. I thought he was very funny. I loved everything about him. Carried around a picture of him in my wallet. But David Combs is one of the people who actually pointed out to me, and it made me a little insecure because I was like, well, I don't know. But I said, he was, talking about our crushes, and I said, yeah, David Letterman. And he goes, oh, so you're attracted to power. And then just like moved on. I was like, I had never thought of. I don't know. I'm 12.
David Combs moment ever.
I'm 12. Wow. I don't know. I just know that I like him. And but it always then made me self-conscious to like say that I had a crush on him. But it is a weird crush for a 12-year-old to have. But I guess.
Well, no, but him and Jonathan Taylor Thomas, David Letterman, very similar.
Right. That is what people say. But I am very attracted to funny people. I think funny people are just.
Me too.
I love someone who's able to make me laugh. And David Letterman, I think, probably was like the first person, celebrity-wise, I remember regularly making me laugh. And just, I don't know, I just loved him.
Sense of humor is awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Which one of us received the most fan mail?
Ryder.
That's what I said. I said it was Ryder. And by the way, the person who sent in this question admitted that it was a boy, and he said he sent a letter to Ryder as a kid.
Yeah.
You had a good year or two where you were on the cover of like every teen magazine.
Yeah. I was actually on Oprah for being one of the celebrities who received like the most fan mail or something.
Well, there you go.
At one point, it was like thousands of letters a week. And so, I ended up being on Oprah. It's an awful appearance. If anybody can find it, it's the worst. I was so like insecure and just
Did you go to Chicago?
Shows,
Did you
by the
like
way.
fly to Chicago?
No, I ended up being in Chicago. I was visiting my friend Erin, who I just saw last week. Still one of my best friends. I was visiting her. She had grown up with Ben, actually. That's how I met her. Second season, she came out to visit Ben, and she and I became best friends and have been best friends ever since. But I was visiting her. This would have been 95, I guess. I went to visit her for like a week or two, and Oprah called, and I just happened to be in town, so they just picked me up in a limo, and I had to go shopping at the Gap, and Erin's mom had to pick out all the clothes. I had nothing to wear, so Erin's mom dressed me for the appearance. I'm so uncomfortable. It's awful. But anyway, the reason I was on Oprah was because I, at that point, was receiving I don't know how many thousands of letters a week, and it was put me in the upper category because that's what the teen magazines basically at the back of the teen magazine would give out a fan address for fans to write to me, and there was, I would say, like until the second season I was reading all of them. Probably by third or fourth it was getting overwhelming. I couldn't read them. I also started feeling very uncomfortable with reading them. It didn't make me feel good. At first it was like, oh my gosh, somebody reaches out to me because they. And then it starts to feel more and more alienating. Like I'm always going to let these people down. Like I'm not going to be able to write a letter back that's eloquent or what they really want. They just want a connection with me, and it started making me feel very uncomfortable. So I ended up. I'm sure a lot of listeners out there have, because I've seen people tweet this or Instagram this. I started sending out a postcard, a signed postcard.
Me too.
That it was a pre-signed thing. It was like there was actually a company. You guys remember? There were fan mail companies that would receive the fan mail for you and send out postcards. So I ended up doing that. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners somewhere still have one of those postcards, me with sitting on a stool or an apple box. And that ended up being my response.
I remember somebody telling me once, and it has always stuck with me. They said, when it comes to your fan mail, answer them all or don't answer any. Don't do anything in between.
Right.
And I always thought that was an interesting way to look at it, where it's like,
I mean, now you would never get letters. You just get emails or tweeted at or Instagram comments or whatever.
Anymore. Yeah, no.
I get letters all the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
Like actual handwritten letters?
Handwritten letters.
Is it a fan site kind of thing? Or
no.
Is it your home?
No, thank God. No.
I
it's
still
not
get
to my
some
home.
stuff to my home occasionally.
Yeah,
No.
people.
Well, when we first started getting fan mail, I also read them all and then responded to all of them. And in 93, so one of the things I did before I started acting in 91, so I started acting when I was 10, 2 years before I got Boy Meets World. And before that, I was in gymnastics. One time I called myself a gymnast, and my mom looked at me and she said, "You were in gymnastics. You were not a gymnast." And she's correct. I was not a gymnast. I was just in gymnastics. But when I decided I wanted to be an actor, my mom was like, well, you can't do both because gymnastics was after school and like you're going to be going to auditions. You have to pick. And I said, I definitely want to be an actor. I want to go to auditions. So I stopped doing gymnastics. And I got a letter in like 93 from a young girl, and she included pictures of herself in it. And she was in gymnastics. And she wrote me this handwritten letter about, that she was a fan. And I wrote her back. And then she sent me another letter, and we started this correspondence back and forth, and I felt very close to her. And one of the things she talked about regularly was that both of her parents died when she was young, and she lived with her older brother. And at some point, maybe in the second letter she wrote me, she included a picture of her brother, a couple pictures of her brother. And her brother was several years older, good-looking guy.
I don't like where this is going.
And she was always talking about, like, thank God for my brother, because without my brother, like, you know, I don't have parents, and you know, I don't know what I would do without him. And then she included her phone number in one of the letters. And I was like, oh, let's give her a call, and realized my mom is participating in me writing back. She's reading all these letters as well, and she's aware of what I'm writing, and she's reading what this girl is writing to me. And my mom is like, yeah, this girl seems like you guys would be friends, you know? So I call her and I get her voicemail, but it is not her. It's her brother's voicemail, because it's his house. They live in an apartment together, but her name isn't anywhere on the voicemail. It's just like, hi, you've reached so-and-so.
She doesn't exist. She doesn't exist.
Well, Ryder,
the call is coming from within the house.
It wasn't until
so
then.
some guy pretending to be a girl.
It was a guy pretending to be a girl, and the way it all came out is because I kept calling her, and she then would never, you know, and I left my phone number, and she wouldn't call me back. And then we got a letter from her brother saying that she had died. And
God, that's where he went to cover his tracks.
My mom woke up in the middle of the night and was like,
she never existed.
She never existed. It's always been him.
No.
And then he started showing up at my school and telling people he was there to pick me up.
Fan mail too.
This is
like
your
the first one you
stalker experience.
You dipped your toe in the pool and an alligator bit your foot off.
Well, this is why you have to have clear boundaries. It's really hard. I mean, like, you know, it's just it's such a tricky thing, fame and dealing with. And even nowadays, it must be even crazier for really famous people. I mean, you just have to create boundaries. It's so hard. I had girls calling my house when I was like 11 and 12. Girls would find because I was listed in the phone book.
Yeah,
my parents
we had
back
to
in my
change our
hometown.
number. Yeah.
And so girls would call, and like back then I would like meet up with them.
Oh God.
Because I was before Boy Meets World. This is when I was like on Home Improvement, or I had done local plays or whatever. Girls would call the house, and like I would meet them at our arcade. Play video games. Super awkward. Like,
right.
But you know, at the time I was just like, oh, you like me? You saw me on a TV show? Okay, I'll be your friend. Let's hang out. Or maybe we'll have a crush on you too. And in retrospect, it's like, no, you have to create boundaries. I remember going out with Ben right during the first season, and he got recognized, I guess, for Little Monsters. It wasn't for Boy Meets World yet, but we were at the Glendale Galleria, I want to say, or one of those early malls in LA. And he got recognized, and I really learned from him how to manage that moment because he was so confident. He was so gracious and thankful, and signed whatever these kids wanted. And I remember watching him and being like, oh, that's the way to do it. Because at that point, I would have, if I got recognized, I'd be like, oh my God, you know me from my TV show? That's so cool. What's your name? Do you want to go hang out? I would just not create any boundaries, because to me, it was so exciting that somebody would recognize me. But of course, when you become a professional actor, you're a professional famous person, you have to learn how to take it in stride and be like, yes, it's good to meet you. It's so nice. I understand you from my show, and, you know, shake hands and take a picture or sign an autograph. But, you know, it's not a chance for you to freak out too.
You're right.
Yeah. When I was 11 or 12, I had a older executive at Nickelodeon scare the hell out of me. I mean, do you remember, you know, those shows where they bring kids into prison and scare them straight? That's essentially what this guy did to me.
About being famous?
Oh, yeah. He sat me down and he said, you know, you're going to start getting letters and you're going to start getting calls, and you don't know who you're talking to. But it worked. It worked. We just put up the boundaries and did the same thing. Had a friend of our family who I'd grown up with was her mother had retired to Florida and was like, let's you know, let me take care of your fan mail. So we would send out the postcards and do all that same kind of stuff. But I mean, you know, you would get really weird letters. I mean, from the strangest one I ever got.
It was rare, though. I mean, we have to say, as a blanket statement,
they were weird.
Fans are awesome.
Amazing.
Fans are incredibly respectful, and like but it's the fear of that 1 in a million that isn't all stable or that's going to lie to you, pretend to be their sister. That's very scary.
Sexual, like very openly sexual, or I mean, again, I had I still say my weirdest one I ever got when people, because this is a question people always give, is like, what's the strangest piece of fan mail you ever got? And a woman, I was probably only second season of Boys, so 17, 18 years old, had sent a wedding invitation with both of our names on it, the time and place, with a letter saying, I'm married now and I have 2 kids, but if you're at this church when, for our wedding, I will be marrying you and I will be leaving my family. And like a full printed up, like I got a wedding invitation to my own wedding. It was so you can get some strange. You're right. 99% of the fans, 99.9% of the fans are amazingly respectful, really nice, just love the show. Would love to talk to you, are really cool people, but you worry about the 0.1%.
Yeah. I mean, I remember David Combs, our studio teacher, being the first person to really sit me down, because I was so confused by being famous, and he was like, Ryder, you're in their living room every week. You're part of their family, and I remember being like, oh, because I hadn't grown up with TV. And so the idea that like when you watch a TV show, especially a TV show with a recurring family, and that you do form this different bond than I had up until that point. I never understood it. That comforting feeling that people get from Boy Meets World. I mean, we're a part of that, and our faces, our voices. And so when somebody meets me that I've never seen before, I've never met, they have this level of like immediate familiarity, and and that's just difficult to navigate. It's a weird thing about media.
Yeah.
Is there a story behind Corey and Shawn's handshake, Ryder?
Yeah. So we had a day. It was really great. I mean, I talked about how Ben and I didn't connect the first week of the show, or the pilot of the show, because he was into sports and whatnot, and he was from LA, or actually he was from Chicago, but he was definitely like living in LA at that point, probably for 3 or 4 years. So, in my mind, being a Northern California snob like I was, everything about LA was awful. So we just didn't get along that well. We didn't connect, even though we were working together, until I guess probably right around where we're at right now in the shows, like right around 7th or 8th episode. For some reason, I can't remember why, we had a just school day together where the show was shut down, and instead of meeting on the set, I don't know why we couldn't meet on the set. We went and met at Ben's house, and it was my first time at Ben's house, and David Combs, our studio teacher, was there, and we finally had like the greatest day ever. We just connected, and we had so much fun, and I remember laughing and telling stories. I think we must have had to make up hours. So it must have been over a weekend. We were making up hours that we had not banked or something. So we had to do schoolwork together, and we just spent this whole day together. And at some point during that day, we created this handshake, and we decided it was our handshake. It was Ryder and Ben's handshake first. It was not Corey Shawn. We did not have any intention for it to be in the show. And then we did that episode. I think it's where the blender explodes. And we just did it during rehearsals. It was not in the script. We were like, hey, we could do our handshake after we achieved whatever it was in the scene. And we did it for David Traynor. And David Traynor was like, do that at the run through. Don't tell them you're going to do it, and just do it. And we did it at the run through, and it became a thing. And then we probably did it 3 times over the course of the series. But yeah, it was a real handshake that we invented. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's, I'll try and find video. Robin, who was the second ED on Girl Meets World, took video of us when we had to do it there, when we were rehearsing it. So they were playing it back for us on a screen while we were, but we had already, I can still remember it. I can still feel it. Yeah. It was really a fun thing. And that like doing a little dance at the end, like that's classic Ben. Like I'm sure he came up with that. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was our real friendship handshake before it became the Corey Shawn handshake.
That's really cool. Cute. That like made me emotional hearing it, because those are the moments that like I really that are the most meaningful for us. The people, people always think about the moments on set, but it's so rare that the really special moments actually took place on set. They usually happened at some other location. Like that one was at Ben's house, and so many of our moments actually that are special to me took place at either Ben's house or at your house, where my mom would drop me off in the morning when you guys were able to drive and I wasn't able to drive, and I would then be at your house either before or after work, and we had all those fun moments. So
all those awkward driving moments.
Watch
it. She was so stressed out. Understandable. So 15 years old, learner's permit, you in the back seat. Oh my God.
My gosh.
The most stressful days of my life. We'll get to that. That's season 2.
driving with Ben and Ben's housekeeper who took us to work a couple of times, and we'd be running late and she would drive down the center divider.
She drives down the median. I remember that. I remember being in the car with her and panicking. Terrified.
Absolutely panicking. And, Ben is so... He's a lot like Corey, but like he's explosive with his body. And I just remember him being seatbelted, but like levitating out of his seat with fear of just like, and like thinking we ran over something. What was that?
Was that just one day? Because I vividly remember that experience. And you and I were both in the car. We were carpooling from Encino and it was raining and we were late. And she just pulled into the median and drove us full speed down. Like, oh my God. It was so terrifying.
It was terrifying. But I also other times drove with her. When I don't think you were there. She was a median driver. She liked to drive down the center divider.
A median driver.
Yeah, it was very funny. We have so many more of your questions that we want to get to, so we are going to take a break and come back with a brand new episode of Frequently Asked Questions.
We love you all. Pod dismissed.
Pod Meets World is an iHeart podcast produced and hosted by Danielle Fishel, Will Friedle, and Ryder Strong. Executive producers Jensen Karp and Amy Sugarman. Executive in charge of production Danielle Romo. Producer and editor Tara Sudbaksh. Producer Lorraine Viruez. Engineer and Boy Meets World superfan Easton Allen. Our theme song is by Kyle Morton of Typhoon. Follow us on Instagram at Pod Meets World Show or email us at podmeetsworldshow@gmail.com.